This is the President McCormack Podcast with your host, Mark McCormack.
So go back. Let's kind of start from the beginning. So when you were young, you had a medical condition.
Yeah. So I was a star athlete, played football, basketball. Coaches and I moved every year high school. So I lived in different states, and coaches said you can play wherever you want. But unfortunately, I developed something called a hydrocele. So a hydrocele, what it is it's fluid filled in the testes. Yeah. And it got to be so big. As a high school young man, you might think you're the most popular one in the school with that. But after a while, it gets a little socially awkward and painful. Yeah. So I had to have surgery on it. And when I had surgery on it, they drained 2 cups of liquid from one side of my testy.
Wow.
So after that, I was given painkillers and anti-inflammatories. That burned large ulcers in my stomach. To try to correct that, I was given more meds. To make a long story short, I went to all the best doctors across the country on paper. I did every single lab test possible, imaging possible, and they couldn't figure out why I got sick or how to get me better. So I was close to the end. And so when I was close to the end, I had heard about a doctor using frequency and physics. And
just real quick, when you say close to the end, how does that end your life, that particular disease?
Well, when I would eat my food, it would sit and ferment in my system, and I couldn't digest it. And I was basically wasting away because I couldn't digest anything.
Gotcha.
That's why I lost my 50 pounds. And so the people, when they saw me a year before compared to what I was then, they were like, wow, are you okay? Yeah. That's how skinny I was. So just digestive problems, extremely weak, couldn't digest anything. And actually, the vitals, I'll tell you too, a couple days before I used some of these new principles, my heart rate was only 36 beats a minute when it should be about 60 beats a minute. Yeah. And then the day I started using these protocols, my blood pressure was only 80 over 40 when it should be 120 over 80. Right. So it was a miracle I was alive. And so I started using the principles of using frequency and physics and nutrition changes, and I started to notice a difference in my health within 2 weeks. And after a year, I was completely better after being sick and almost dying for 2 years. So, wow. Yeah, there's.
How'd you find that what would you call that procedure, I guess?
Well, it wasn't a procedure. It is basically protocols using physics and voltage and frequency. So basically, a lot of medicine right now, they look at the body from a chemistry perspective. And with the chemistry perspective, you look at the body, there's some shortcomings to it. But when you look at the body from a physics perspective, everything has physics, everything has frequency and energy and voltage. So when you look at there was a doctor back in the day. He studied salamanders, and salamanders can regrow their limbs. Mm-hmm. So when they would cut off the limb of the salamander, they would notice that the voltage shot up. And when the salamander regrew the limb, they measured the voltage, and the voltage went back to normal. So this practitioner, they took frogs, and they would cut off their limb, and they put a watch battery in it, and they would increase its voltage, and the limb would grow back. And then once the limb grew back, the voltage went back to normal. So you can apply these same principles to the human body and the protocols. So when you look at the body, I look at it like a computer. If you want a computer to work, you need voltage, you need hardware, and you need the software. Yeah. Well, for us in the human body, we need the hardware, and we get that from nutrition, the good things we eat, as long as it's good quality. We need the software, and there's ways you can get that, but you also need voltage. So the body is always repairing and renewing. The most basic unit of our body is your cell. Your cells make up your tissues make up your organs make up your entire body system. If you can get your cells to work, it means you can get your tissues to work, your organs to work, you name it. So it all starts at that level. And every chronic disease occurs when you don't have enough voltage and you're lacking proper frequencies for your body to repair and renew.
Oh, interesting. So with voltage, Is there a source in your body, or is it like the whole body's kind of lit up and it just allocates to like the spot?
Well, there are multiple sources of voltage, so you can increase voltage in your body multiple ways. So for me at the time when I was sick, I was so sick that I couldn't use some of the things standard people could use because I couldn't work out. Now, I had to use certain devices to help raise my voltage. But there's multiple ways to raise your voltage. Our muscles are what's called piezoelectric. When you're exercising and you're moving your muscles, you're generating electrons. And what covers the muscle is this layer of tissue called the fascia. And from the fascia, these electrons go through the fascia and they go to different parts of your organs in your body. So that's one of the ways you can raise your voltage. Also, when life on this earth would actually not exist without lightning. When lightning strikes on the earth, electrons pass back and forth between the atmosphere and the earth, and it creates something called the Schumann resonance. And when this happens, it deposits electrons in the ground. So when you go put your feet barefoot in the grass or the dirt or the sand, you are actually raising your voltage.
Oh.
So
how long will that lightning last? Like, you have to do it quickly, or can it be there for days?
No, it could be there for days because it's constantly going back and forth. But actually the most voltage occurs right after a lightning storm, obviously, because it was just recent.
Yeah.
But you just don't want to go out during the lightning storm. That could be dangerous. Right. But it can last days, months, years. It's this constant flow of electrons. But it's not only, again, exercise, putting your feet barefoot. Trees actually have voltage as well. And this might sound like a funny phrase. When you go hug a tree, you're getting voltage.
That makes sense. Probably why people do it.
Yes.
Like subconsciously, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So what I did is I changed my diet completely.
How did that look?
Well, before I'd gone to all the specialists everywhere, and one of the things we'd always ask them, like, what diet do I need to have? They're like, oh, you can eat whatever you want. And so me, back in the day, I thought, okay, I can eat whatever I want. Oh, great. So I can eat Wendy's. They're like, oh, yeah, you can eat Wendy's. So I would eat anything because I didn't know at the time that what I ate was affecting my body.
Yeah.
And so my paradigm completely shifted once I got sick. I had tried different diets, but the diet that helped me the most came from the principles of Weston A. Price. Have you heard of Weston A. Price before? Weston A. Price was a dentist in the early 1900s, and he traveled the world at a time when there was still a lot of places that weren't modernized and didn't have the modern diet, a processed diet. And so what he would do is he would compare the teeth of the people in the city on the modern diet to the people on the more native, natural diet. And he found that you would think the people on the modern diet had better teeth because guess what? They could go to the dentist, they have toothbrush, you name it. He actually found the people who were on the native diet had better teeth and they had better palate structures. So when you look at, as humans, we're not 100% carnivore, we're not 100% herbivore, we're omnivore. We're kind of there in the middle. We need our food broken down. So when I got sick, I was eating whatever I want, but then when I found these principles, I knew I needed to change my diet so I could create new cells that work. So I completely shifted my diet. I read the labels, and if there was a word I could not read or understand, which is on a lot of food labels nowadays, I didn't touch it.
Yeah.
So I would eat a lot of free-range eggs or pasture-raised eggs. I would drink raw milk.
Oh, cool.
And this was back in 2008, before it got popular, so people looked at me pretty funny. But when you look at raw milk, that is a full nutrient. That has full nutrients, full fats and proteins. The pasteurization homogenization process breaks those fats and proteins down so they're not as absorbable. And it also breaks down this thing called the lactase enzyme, which helps you digest it. But I would eat sourdough bread, which is a form of gluten that's more broken down and digestible. And I would just eat. I because my stomach was so wrecked, I had to eat food broken down in more a natural state.
Yeah.
But as I did that, I noticed a complete difference. You can't only use the frequency and the voltage and the physics alone. You also needed the nutrition piece, and that was key to getting me better.
So did you use like a multivitamin or any supplements along the way?
I did use supplements. It's unfortunate that the whole multivitamin supplement industry, I'll be honest, there's a lot of bad actors that have come in and try to take advantage. And so when you look at them, there's a lot that are not very absorbable. So I did use some supplements, but only high quality. An example is one of the things I used was digestive enzymes. Now, past the age of 20, a lot of people start to lose stomach acid. And when you lose stomach acid, you can't digest your food. So one of the things I would take to help me digest, to help my GI tract recover, was digestive enzymes, as well as ox bile.
Oh, really?
Yes, it tastes like actual bile when you get sick. It's pretty strong stuff, but it was huge in getting me through.
Cool. Good. So how are you now?
I'm healthier than
Like
before I
100%?
got sick.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Cool.
100%. And that's the miracle of it all, because I was dying, and it took about the body when you are in the healing process. It's not an overnight fix.
Yeah.
And that's in our day and age. A lot of people are looking for a quick fix. That's not the case.
Yeah.
So it took me about 9 months to a year, but now I'm completely better after being sick and almost dying.
Nice.
Life is good. I don't have any residual effects from when I was sick in the past.
So what year did you become kind of free and clear of all this?
This would have been 2009, 2010.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you've been good for 14-ish years?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been great. Yeah.
That's good to hear. So what's your emotions around that now that you're way past that? When you look back at that time in your life, like, how do you view it?
Well, at the time, obviously, I was discouraged because one of my dreams, I wanted to play some kind of college sport. I wanted to do college football or basketball. Yeah. I know, you look at me, you're like, hey, this guy, you got pretty good height there.
Yeah.
But you may not look at me as an athlete, but I was a great athlete. And so when I had to sit on the sideline, that was tough.
Yeah.
And even after when I was in the recovery process, I was like, well, it was a bummer that I didn't get to play out my sports dreams.
Yeah.
But looking back, everything happens for a reason. And so now, doing what I do now, that it's rewarding. And now I got a beautiful wife. I've got kids. I've got 4 kids now. And the joy you have being able to be a husband, a father, and to be able to help other people, it definitely is rewarding. So I try not to dwell on the past. You dwell on the past, it's never healthy. You just stay present.
Yeah, yeah. So how are you able to help other people?
So after I got better, I was able to meet my wife, and we didn't get married right away. I went to school. I went on a 2-year church mission, and then I came back. We got married. And then I ended up getting I graduated my undergrad, and then I went to chiropractic school.
Okay.
And after I graduated from chiropractic school, I got to go work and see the craziest cases from all over the world. I've seen patients from almost every continent, and I've seen all the patients that were going to something similar that I went through. Mm-hmm. And seeing patients has been great, but that was only part of the journey. When I know what I know now, what's missing in a lot of healthcare settings is a lot of people don't realize that I was giving you part of my story, but there are so many things that make people sick and keep them sick that's being missed.
Yeah.
And people were searching for answers like I was, going to all the best doctors everywhere, doing all the best tests. And they don't know why they got sick. Once you figure out why you got sick, you can figure out solutions to getting better.
Sure.
So that's what I've done for years now, and I've seen patients, but there got to be a point where I had to change and adapt. And really, one of the big things that happened with that was COVID. When you see a patient, obviously you can see them one person at a time. It's what you call a single liquidating offer, right? You see them and you give them the tools. Hopefully they come back and see you again, or they get better, right? Not every patient listens, and that's okay. Everyone has their free will to choose. But during COVID, it was interesting. The whole world shut down, and in the healthcare setting, it was interesting because the boards told you could only see essential patients. The medical boards.
Yeah, what's that?
Essential patients. That's the very broad term. I was like, every patient's essential. So there was most of the clientele I was seeing came from multiple states and countries, and when that closed down, you had to figure out, okay, how am I going to adapt to this? And so one of the things I was able to adapt with is I figured out, okay, you can completely, if you relied on one thing, you got to be able to pivot and shift. So what I did is I switched to be able to see people on telehealth online. And that's actually been a huge blessing because you can still get the same great information online now as you do if someone's coming in person. Yeah. And it's great for them because it saves them money and also saves them the time and hassle of having to fly and see you, get a hotel, you name it. So I was able to broaden my scope of patients, being able to see people online. But in part of my healing journey, when my kidneys were healthy enough when I was sick, I got tested through something called a chelation test. So heavy metals, when you get an exposure to a heavy metal, and a heavy metal is something like mercury or aluminum or something like that, when you get an exposure to that, it's in your blood about 24 hours. And then after 24 hours, the heavy metals, because they're heavy, they sink into your deeper tissues. So a lot of practitioners will try to do a blood test to find heavy metals, but you're actually going to miss toxicity because unless they're getting an acute exposure or a current exposure within 24 hours. So a lot of heavy metal toxicity is missed. So when my kidneys were healthy enough, I did something called chelation testing. That's where they inject an IV into you. It brings heavy metals out of fat tissue and you urinate them out. And I had 13 C's of mercury poisoning. So what I would do is I would go every weekend for a long time and do that chelation, and I would eliminate the mercury, which was very, very, it was very tough. But I figured out, with correlation with some other people, I figured out ways of eliminating toxicities like mercury from the cells where they're the most toxic without having to be there in person. And so I would send patients bottles or let me back up. Let me explain to you why. Yeah. You're like, well, how does this work? There's this principle in physics called destructive interference. So let's say this is a frequency of mercury. You can take the frequency of mercury and you can reverse it and create the flipped polarity of it, or the reverse frequency. When you add the reverse frequency to the frequency of the toxin, when you see, because they're opposite, destructive interference occurs. So it's just like two waves coming in opposite directions. One's low, one's high, and they meet at the same moment. They're going to cancel each other out. You do the same thing to the body. You can help eliminate mercury from the cellular level. And so we figured out a way to do that, and that's one of the reasons patients would come and see me. So when COVID hit, I had to think, okay, they can't come and see me, and I would try to, a lot of my patients were international, I'd have to send them bottles of these reverse frequencies for specific toxicities they had. And I would send them to Canada or Australia, some of the most strict places, and they would never get them. Oh. And so these patients were really, really sick. So I was like, okay, what can I do? How can I help more people get better without having to see me? So there's two things I did. First is I wrote a book. In my book, I described all my processes of how people could eliminate toxicities from home.
Yeah.
But the second process I did, I was like, they're relying on this technology. And what I've seen in the healthcare setting, sadly, is there's some really good cutting edge technologies out there that will get shut down from FDA or other regulatory industries, and not just in this country, but other countries. Happens all the time. So I thought, okay, how can I get people this physics of being able to eliminate toxins on their own without having the technology I do? And I figured out, you know what? People could do this from their own phones. But I had to figure out a way, how can I do this without radiation or EMF? And I figured out a way, so I created an online membership where people could create their own reverse frequencies for toxins to help them detox from home, or also listen to it, and they get benefit. But what's really cool about this is just helped open up so much, where people used to have to pay for very expensive equipment to heal their own bodies that were pricey and that were hard to use, and now you can use it from the convenience of your phone. So that's been one of the things I've done to be able to help so many people, is not only see patients, but now people can be well on their own without having to depend on me or anyone else.
Oh, very cool. So is your subscription model pretty successful?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And so really everything is in a value ladder though, right? Obviously, I want to make my system where maybe there's an average person, they're not super sick, but they want to be able to learn to detox themselves, or they want to, I also have biohacks I share on there. They want to be able to use tools on their own at home without having to go see someone.
Yeah.
And so for those kind of people, the subscription model is great, because it's a low ticket. For $97 a month, you can get access to I got over 60 frequencies. And as compared to when I first got sick, the device I had to buy, it was about $2,200. Plus you had to train and learn to use it. And if it breaks, guess what? You got to buy it again. But now you can get your own frequencies from your phone. And it's cool. It's not only for toxins. I got stuff for brain waves, stuff for athletes, stuff for intimacy, you name it. So that's like the lower on the value ladder. We're able to help more people who maybe aren't super sick, or maybe people who can't afford. But I still see patients. But because I've created this value ladder, I used to, again, I'd see patients day and night. Sometimes I'd be seeing patients till 12 at night.
Oh, wow.
Especially after these last couple of years, there's been some interesting things.
Yeah.
But
when you're seeing your clients, are you doing a chiropractic session with them as well, or is it only for the frequencies?
Well, it's a little bit of both. So when I'm looking at the body, I'm obviously looking at, okay, where do their organs have low voltage? But there's two different parts of the body that use voltage. One of them is your organ systems, that system I told you about earlier, like when you exercise, the fascia, those are like your power lines of your body. Voltage is constant. Voltage and frequency are constantly flowing through those. But the other part of the body that uses voltage is nerves. So when I see patients, I'm looking at the organs, I'm looking at the nerves, and I'm also looking at the lymphatic system to see if things are draining properly.
Right.
So it's a good combination, but I'm also looking for root causes as to why the voltage drops in the first place.
Yeah.
When you understand the why, you can understand the solutions. And an example I could give you is the number one reason I see people get sick is dental infection.
Oh,
It's
really?
being missed.
Oh, it's being missed. Okay.
Being missed.
So it's not like they're getting a cavity and they're getting it filled in and they didn't get it all. It's actually just, they're not seeing it on an x-ray. It's just there.
Well, there's several factors. First is, a cavity one cavity will knock out 80% of your immune system.
Wow.
But not only that, root canals are actually the biggest killer I've seen. And the reason is when they do a root canal procedure, they drill through your tooth, they remove your arteries, nerves, and veins, and then they fill the tooth in. The problem with that is around the tooth, there's this layer of tissue called the dentin, and it requires a blood supply because the blood supply brings oxygen. So when they've removed the arteries, nerves, and veins, they've taken away the blood supply from a tissue that needs it. And when that happens, that tissue dies and it begins to expand. And what I've seen is that different teeth actually lead to different organs. So almost all the breast cancer patients I've seen have had a root canal in either the top molars and bottom premolars. And you can tie specific low voltage in the organs and specific conditions to infection in the teeth. And the reason it's being missed is that when you take a standard dental image, you need more than 50% bone loss to catch infection. The only way to catch infection is through something called a 3D cone beam scan. So this type of imaging, these dentists, they'll do this advanced imaging, this cone beam scan around, and they'll be able to look above, down, and inside and out the tooth. Once they can see, they can find the infection. So I've had thousands of patients I've seen where they've gone to the dentist each year and they said, no, my teeth are fine. My teeth are perfectly fine. I don't have any infection. And when I look at the indicators I see, I'm like, you have dental infection 100%. I know it. You send them to one of these specialized dentists, they find it. And when they find it, they eliminate it the proper way. Once they eliminate the proper way, there's some patients where they've had a constant pain in their neck or back that will not go away. Once they eliminate the infection, they wake up from the surgery, that pain's gone and doesn't ever come back again.
That's wild, and it's all in the teeth, huh?
All in the teeth. And it's not only the root canals, but this can occur when you pull a tooth. If you pull a tooth and the ligament is left in, like in wisdom teeth, it can do the same thing that a root canal would do. There was a book out called The Root Canal Cover-Up. It's nothing against the dentist. The guy who originally created the root canal procedure, he spent the last years of his life getting dentists stop doing it. And there was a whole cover-up about it, and there's a whole book about it called Root Canal Cover-Up. And so he was trying to get people to stop because he knew it was killing people, even though he created it. But
that's a horrible
I give him
position.
credit.
Yeah.
I give him credit. He tried to stop it, but by that point, others who were in power won out. But if you know the right type of imaging, the infection's there. You just got to find it. It's there. But this occurs from pulled tooth, root canals, and also amalgam fillings, metal fillings.
Yeah. I actually had all my metal fillings pulled out a few years ago and got the white stuff.
Excellent.
I can't tell what it's called, yeah.
Well, the key is doing it the safe way, too. So
Yeah, tell me what that is and I'll let you know.
I'll tell you. That's okay. There's a way you can eliminate.
Yeah.
So one of the problems with mercury is you can see mercury vapor in front of a green screen. So if you took a mercury filling or an amalgam filling and you rubbed it with a pencil eraser, you can see the mercury vapor go up.
Oh, wow.
So if you drill into a mercury filling, it can go, and the vapor can go into your brain. You're good. And that's not what we want. We don't want it in the brain. So when you remove mercury, a good, what's called biological dentist, what they'll do is they'll put this thing called a dental dam in your mouth, and then they will remove.
Excuse me, Jason.
Oh, you're good. You're good. No worries. This dry climate, right? But they'll put this dental dam in your mouth. You're good. I'll let you drink some more water. You're good.
Give me 1 second. Yeah, sorry. Jeez. I took you down the wrong hole. Jeez.
You're good.
Okay, we're going to clip that bit.
You're good. I remember where I was at.
Okay, go ahead.
You're good. So you got to remove it the right way. And what you do is a good biological dentist, they'll put something called a dental dam in your mouth. The dental dam makes it so when they drill the mercury fillings out, the vapor, you won't swallow it, the mercury in the first place. But the other thing they'll do is they'll take a nasal cannula, they'll put it in your nose, and they'll stuff cotton in your nose. And when they do that, when they drill through, the vapor will not go into the brain, you won't swallow it. And so that's the safe way to remove mercury. Unfortunately,
So I think that's what my dentist did. He kind of
excellent.
puts a little thing around your tooth, right? And like builds kind of like this pool, basically, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, good. You went to someone good then.
Yep.
So thank goodness. There's people that don't, and they end up getting mercury in the brain, which it can get out, but it's not where you want it.
Yeah. It's bad, real bad, isn't it?
Yes, extremely bad. Mercury is a huge neurotoxin. Yeah. So yeah, stuff like that. Once you figure out the root cause, the why, you can answer any questions.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's all from you getting sick originally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But had I not gotten sick, I wouldn't have been able to discover all this and help so many people get better.
Yeah.
At least being an instrument. I guess I can't say I get them better. I am a guide. Again, there's that saying, you can fish for someone or teach someone how to fish. I want to teach people how to fish. So I don't have to depend on me or anyone else. So I'm a guide. As a guide, you give people guidance. Some people listen, some people don't. It's up to them. But they still have to put in the work to get themselves better.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So you guys, so you've grown your social media a little bit. Mm-hmm. Is that based off of your clients kind of coming in from the knowledge you have in this world, or are those correlated?
Well, yeah, that's part of it. Once you understand frequency and physics, you can explain so many things in this world, and it'll change your life forever. So that's what happened with me. I remember I got my doctorate in chiropractic. It's a lot of schooling.
Yeah.
When I look at the schooling system, though, I'll be quite honest. It's just not efficient. I think all the hours I spent in class, and I'm not complaining. I'm grateful for my education. But the model they're dominantly employing in so many industries is the chemistry model. You're going to miss so much vital information if you don't look at the physics of things. And so because the physics and frequency saved my life, I look at everything in this world and I notice that there's frequency and physics everywhere. That's why going outside is so healthy. That the lightning I told you about before with the Schumann resonance, that's not the only way we get the voltage. Again, the trees, we get voltage. But I've started to notice what's cool about seeing patients throughout the year is that you start to notice patterns. All of a sudden, a bunch of these patients will come in with very similar things because of what's going on in the environment. And when you're outside and I'm out in nature and I'm walking around, because I know about frequency and physics, I'll notice, that bird over there it's chiming at a certain frequency. Let me figure out what frequency it's chiming at. I used the frequency from the bird, and I was able to apply it to allergens, and it helped people with their allergies. Yeah. Go figure. A lot of the solutions are just going outside in nature. Everything has frequency. Color has a frequency. Smell has a frequency. Sound is a frequency. Everything is a frequency.
Yeah. Wow. So allergies. So I've got a little bit of allergies. At least back in the day, I used to have hay fever. Mm-hmm. So if you had hay fever, how would you match frequencies to eliminate that? So
what you do, there's two ways you can do it. That principle I told you about before, there's a universal law. Everything has an opposite. That's a universal law. It's called polarity. It's kind of like men and women. Women are different from men, and that's polarity. Masculine energy, feminine energy, it's opposite. But their opposites actually are needed. So if you have, for hay fever, again, you can take the frequency of the hay, you flip its polarity, and you create a remedy. And the other way is you find in nature, cows eat hay. A lot of the animals eat hay. If we were to take their frequency of some of the noises they produce and apply it to the body, It's actually probably the reverse frequency that would help eliminate it from the body. So here's why it works. I'll get into some more science, I guess.
Yeah.
Pollens. In the springtime, when you go outside and you got this yellow stuff all over your car, those are pollens. And it's really sticky. No matter what you do to do the windshield wipers, it won't come off. When you look at pollens, they're made of this material called exine. And exine uses hydrogen bonding. And what a hydrogen bond is an electron goes back and forth between either a nitrogen, oxygen, or a fluorine. So what happens is it actually bounces it back and forth. It's actually a frequency. So when you put that reverse frequency of that allergen, it takes the stickiness away. Once the stickiness is away, the body can more easily repel it. So I've had tons of patients, yes, who've had allergens by simply either taking drops of the reverse frequency or listening to the frequency. It helps them get the allergens out.
Oh, gotcha.
But there's other factors too. Another one I see is cranial nerves. So this one was close to me. There's so many factors in my healing process of what I went through. So we'll back up. Since I was a football guy, did you do any sports?
Football. Yeah.
Football. Yeah. I knew
I'm too big not to give it a shot.
I was going to say, did you play all high school?
I did. I played all high school. I started all 3 years.
Did you play in college?
I did not. I broke my back on my LDS mission.
Oh, man.
So I came back just a lowly man. Tall, lowly man.
That's okay. You see, you never got to play it out either. So you feel the same way as me.
No, I feel the same way as you, 100%.
Sure, we're weekend warriors. So, okay. So football. Obviously, I love football. I would still go back and play it. But when I was a freshman, I got braces. Mm-hmm. And after I got braces, I noticed, this is even before I had my surgery or my hydrocele, I started noticing like, man, I can't run like I used to. What's wrong with me? This is crazy, because I used to be able to run like crazy, not get tired. In the conditioning drills, I'd be able to usually be top 1, 2, or 3. But then after the braces, my energy just went way down. And I didn't discover till later, and this is years down the road, I discovered this. Braces, what they'll do is the bones in our head, they're not actually stuck together. They actually move. So the bones in our head move, and so does our tailbone, and it makes up this thing called your cranial sacral pump. And it pumps back and forth like this. It goes boom, 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 boom. And when this pump's working right, it pumps toxins out of your brain and spinal cord, and it pumps nutrients in. So the roof of your mouth, or your palate, makes up part of this pump. When you wire it shut, you shut off that pump.
Okay.
When you shut off that pump, you can't pump toxins or inflammation out and nutrients in. So here I was, a football guy, getting a lot of hits to the head. And one of the reasons why I wasn't recovering is my pump was shut off. And that's what made me tired too. So now, once you removed the wire, obviously the pump turns back on. But most of the ways they make wires and braces restrict your expansion of your palate. And when you look at our ancestors, this is back to Weston A. Price, a lot of our ancestors had these huge jaw lines, big, broad jaw lines. We call it the Brad Pitt jawline.
Yeah.
But as each generation has just gotten more and more narrow, and when it gets more and more narrow, you actually lose airway, and you lose breathing capability. So for me, part of the reason I also got sick, which I didn't realize at the time until later, was my braces cutting off my pump. And so for things like allergens, when I was able to, I got completely better, and then I still felt like I didn't have as much lung production, but I discovered some nerve principles and nerve exercises from one of my favorite breathing experts. Her name is Lois Laney. Pretty cool name.
Not bad.
But I learned that, my vagus nerve was off because of my hits and my braces and my pump being off. So I started to turn on this vagus nerve, and once I turned on this vagus nerve, I was able to breathe again. So for people with allergies, it's very common, and I bet it's you since you're a football guy like me. I'd test your nerves right here if I could, if you're wanting to. Put yourself out there. But there's a lot of people with allergens. They get the pollens and the allergens in the sinus, and they can't fully eliminate it because their cranial nerves aren't functioning right, which take voltage. So once you're able to figure out which nerves are off through easy tests, you can figure out ways to rewire the nerves so they function again. But there's so many people out there that can recover from allergies. It's either, again, it's purely the allergen or it's cranial nerve involvement.
Gotcha. So if you're like a commoner listening to this podcast, right, and you're like, does this apply to me or does this not apply to me? How do you know?
Well, what I can tell you, I want this to apply to you. I want you to learn these principles because I'd rather you prevent than have to go through the hard way.
Gotcha.
I went through things the hard way. That was not fun. And when I saw what my parents go through, as a husband, as a father, I don't want my kids to suffer. And I saw what my parents went through when they were suffering, when I was suffering, and how hard it was on them emotionally. As a commoner, you're like, I feel fine, but we also want to be preventative. Yeah. And that's everything I want to teach people too. And that's why we also have our social media, our membership, is we want to prevent. Because I thought the same thing. I'm a healthy athlete. I'm going to be fine. Yeah. I wasn't, I was taking care of my body. Some of my teammates were abusing their bodies into bad stuff, but I wasn't doing any of that. I'm going to be fine. Yeah. Sure enough, it hit me. If it could hit me, it could hit anyone. And I don't say that to be scared tactics, but if your body has enough voltage, frequencies are firing right, if you have enough oxygen, the body can't get sick and injured. Plain and simple. So that's why I do what I do. I want to teach people these principles, and I want to be preventative, proactive.
Oh, very cool. So what's the best way to engage with you? Is it through Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram. And then if you ever want an appointment too, again, I can do telemed or in person. Yeah. We have our website is healingplaybook.com. But yeah, everything, I share a lot of frequency principles, biohacks on Instagram. Yeah. But
then you practice in Texas, I'm assuming?
I practice in Texas, but what's cool is that I'm traveling everywhere. Now I'm completely on my own. And so I work at another clinic previously. Now I'm completely on my own. And so, yeah, I got to come up here, and people came and saw me. Seen people in other states too. So, yeah, I get to travel, but also I have that convenience of telehealth. So.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool. So is your wife involved in the business at all, or is she?
Yes, she is. She is. And she's huge. And she's huge for the business. I couldn't do any of this without her. When you were asking me some of these pop culture questions earlier, I was like, I don't know who. Yeah. A lot of my life might seem boring, but when you're a practitioner, you're spending a lot of your day getting text emails of people asking health questions. So a lot of my life is dedicated, obviously, to spirituality, my wife, my kids, and helping my patients. So we don't have a TV at home because we're laser focused. But she does the social media. She's the brilliant one she knows all the angles of when to cut and the editing. So I couldn't do this business without her. And that's what I love about having a family business. Yeah. In all my experience, I had a lot of sacrifice in my journey getting here. And it wasn't just a health thing. It was a business thing too. So when I was going through school for a doctorate of chiropractic, where I went around, I only owe about $260,000 in debt, right? No sweat. But when I was going through school, because financial aid was so low, I was working at 1.3 jobs. I was valet parking. I was folding laundry at the gym. I was working as a grocer, and my wife, bless her heart, she had kids at home. Yeah. She's the one who did all the hard work. And in my experience, even when I graduated, I was seeing patients, and then at nighttime, I would go, and they have these scooters you could recharge, kind of like Uber or Lyft, but for scooters.
Yeah.
Even though I was seeing complicated conditions, I wasn't getting paid a lot, so I had to make a second income.
Yeah.
And to do that, I would see patients all day, go find these scooters that needed recharging at night, wake up like 4 hours earlier, put the scooters back, and that was my secondary income. Bless my wife's heart. And then after a while, your body's like, you can only handle so much. And so luckily, I was blessed to be able to continue to see more and more patients and expand. But on this journey, I've come to realize you can never depend on anyone else for income.
Yeah.
If you want to go and you want to help more people, you have to do it yourself. And you just got to figure out a way to make money doing it.
Yeah.
And that's what we figured out. I look at our ancestors and a lot of these health principles, it's bringing it back to what did some of our ancestors do, right?
Yeah.
Because you look at their lives, they were so healthy, so happy. Obviously, they didn't have the sanitary things we do now, and so we got that great convenience. But I look at how much happier families are. I look at our family business as like a farm. I joke with my wife, I'm like, we're frequency farmers. And so she's huge. She's a huge part of the business. I couldn't do without her. We work as a team, and as a home business, I mean, you get the tax benefits, but there's also sacrifice involved.
Yeah.
I'm laser focused. But for my kids, they're high energy because they got blessed with the good stuff that I didn't always have growing up.
Yeah.
Because they're high energy, they're full on day and night. And so sometimes it's late at night, early in the morning, we have to get work done, and it takes sacrifice. But it's worth every moment to be able to see people's lives change.
Yeah.
And you get to have the freedom now when you have your own business.
Plus, it's got to be kind of fun, right? When you travel, if you come up to Utah or go to wherever, California, Louisiana, right? Like you go see people, and it's got to be rewarding.
Very rewarding. And a lot of people are caught in this bubble. If you stay in your same bubble forever, you just don't learn.
Yeah.
And on top of us doing this business, we do homeschool with our kids. Again, I went through the system. I can talk a lot of wasted time and energy, I'll be honest. But, school might be for you. No judgment. You do what's best for you and your family.
Yeah. We're a homeschool family as well.
I knew you were my person.
We speak the same language.
Football, homeschool. I love this. All right. So, homeschool. Homeschool's great. Now that we get to travel, our kids get to see completely different lifestyles, environments, and you get to teach them along the way. And ultimately, kids only need to be able to read, write, do math, and think for themselves. And that's the problem with the education system I didn't always like. I was that one student that I wasn't trying to challenge the professors. Like I listened to them, I respected them, but I was always an outside the box thinker, which is what all the entrepreneurs I've met are like that. And so I would ask them certain questions outside the box thinking, and it always got shut down at the university level. I was like, I don't want my kids to go through this. They need to be open thinkers. So that's what the beautiful part about the online business is, making money with your family. We're like modern day frequency farmers.
Yeah, I love that. That's cool. So kind of wrapping up at the end here, I always ask this to people, what is your best advice, just in general?
Best advice. My personal belief is part of our Instagram page. We put as our title, what we do is faith, family, frequencies. I'm a firm believer in God. I wouldn't be here without him. Why I survived and other people didn't, I don't know. You can't have survivor's guilt, whatever. I'm grateful I'm alive, and I don't understand why not everyone recovers from a sickness. But I have to give credit that God does all the healing. These are tools and principles in his hands. And really to have faith, whatever it is you believe in, to keep moving forward, you just got to have that faith and hope. And right now in this world, this is very similar time period as to what I was going through with my family. I had moved every year of high school, and this was during 2008 time, and those are tough economic times. My family felt it, and it's very similar to today. People think that it's the end or there's doomsday. It's never doomsday. It's never the end. Keep that faith, keep that hope, trust in God, and keep moving forward, and you're going to see miracles in your life.
Yeah, awesome. Well, no, that's great, dude. It's very interesting out there because I really feel a shift in cultural, right? From like Western medicine to Eastern medicine. I don't know exactly where that falls in there, but like, I feel like people are really, they're more comfortable moving into like modalities, right? Where they can like really help themselves by doing things that make sense. Does that make sense? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. You know, part of the culture, and nothing against the older generation. It's just, it was complete trust in Western. But what we've seen these last couple of years, especially, I guess I can't go into details or name names, right? But people have started to question now and be like, oh, and it's nothing against Western medicine. If I break my arm in half or I'm in a car accident, I need survival, Western medicine's amazing for acute situations like that and surgery and stuff, right? But for chronic illnesses, like long disease and for like standard of life, we see that if we continue on only one route, we're going to bankrupt the system, politically, or your own pocketbooks, right? But this shift, I like to bridge that gap between Eastern and Western medicine, where all these Eastern modalities like acupuncture actually can be explained from a physics perspective, frequency and voltage. And so I really just want to bridge that gap and have the two meet together. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. There's a huge shift, and it's a great time to be alive in the world.
It is, absolutely. So, well, my friend, thank you for coming on. I'm actually really excited to share this message with my listeners and
awesome.
Put on my social media. A little bit smaller than yours, but, we'll do something together.
Oh, we're grateful for you to have on. Again, I only go on with people that resonate with me, and we have the same brainwave. We didn't realize that at the time, but that's amazing. That's how things work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the President McCormack Podcast, brought to you by McCormack Foundation, Saxton Fund, ADP Lemco, and Professional Floor Systems. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and keep up with Mark on Instagram @President McCormack.